It affects our health. It affects our weight loss. I'm here to empower you with understanding and to remind you that you're not alone. You're not alone. All of a sudden I was struggling, and doctors, they were like, you know what? You're depressed. I'm like, listen, I'm not depressed. My system isn't working the same way. Every way that people have been doing health and fitness, it's wrong. It's going to play into that the opposite way. We talk a lot about growth environment versus the fixed environment. You've got to be in a state of perpetual growth. You are training the wrong way, you're going to be aging yourself times 4. But in today's world, chronic stress is relentless, right? We've got financial pressures, emotional loads, work demands, physical stress, so your body keeps score. And if the stress never lets up, your adrenals pay the price. Adrenal fatigue, it will shut down. We want to build that metabolism up. You're not alone in this. Sarah and I, we've lived it, and we are here to walk beside you every step of the way because your story isn't over. You are important, and there's nothing stopping you. You are the unstoppable version of yourself, and you can do this. Welcome back, okay, to the Fit Culture Health Snapshot series, where we're going to dive deep into your health challenges that so many of us face and offer real insight, tools, and inspirations that help you live at your highest level. Hi, I'm Eric Viskovicz, co-founder of Fit Culture, and today's episode is one that's very close to my heart. We're exploring adrenal health, specifically Addison's disease and especially adrenal fatigue. This is personal to me because, to be honest, I've lived with Addison's disease every day. And my wife, partner Sarah, she's been through her own battle with adrenal fatigue. So together, gosh, man, we have learned so much. Experimented and built systems that have changed not only our lives, but so many of the lives of other people in the community, because people struggle. They struggle with this stuff. So we want to make sure that, you're not struggling at home. And if you're starting to feel some of these things that we're going to talk about, you might go, aha, you know what? I think I'm dealing with that, or maybe I should check that out. So whether you're dealing with a formal diagnosis or you've just been feeling completely wiped out, foggy, okay, that's something, and frustrated with your health, today's episode is for you. Clearly, I'm not a doctor, but trust me, I have so much understanding when it comes to this stuff because it affects so much. It affects our health. It affects our weight loss. I'm here to empower you with understanding and to remind you that you're not alone. You're not alone. I get it. So my journey with Addison's has been, it hasn't been simple. It hasn't been easy. So let's start with my story. Addison's disease, also known as primary adrenal insufficiency or a severe adrenal fatigue. It isn't super common to have Addison's. Adrenal fatigue is now starting to become much more common. So it's an autoimmune condition where the adrenal glands stop producing enough cortisol and hormones in our body, and literally it just stops. So everything just kind of shuts down. So cortisol, as many of you know, is your body's main stress hormone. Okay, there's all different kind of ways to feel that, and aldosterone helps regulate your blood pressure and your electrolyte balance. So when all these things are off, your system's off. And before I was diagnosed, man, I spent years feeling like my body was betraying me. I just was like, gosh, man, this is so crushing fatigue, dizziness, muscle weakness, extreme stress. I could not process stress the same way. And I was like the stress processing guy. As someone who always been immersed in health and fitness, it was just devastating. All of a sudden I was struggling, and doctors, they were like, you know what? You're depressed. I'm like, listen, I'm not depressed. My system isn't working the same way, because on the outside, I looked fine. But on the inside, my body was just in fight or flight crisis. Doctors misdiagnosed me with depression, like I said, and put me on antidepressant medication. But I didn't feel depressed. My body wasn't just functioning properly. when the diagnosis finally came in, it was like a mix of relief and also fear. Like, what? I have Addison's disease? What is that? I was told this is a lifelong situation, and it has been. Um, but if I would manage my meds, keep your stress levels low, and do your best, that this may help. But as you might guess, do your best, sit down with me. Uh, you know, just didn't sit well with me. It's one of those things where, how was I not going to have stress? I had kids. I own businesses. I'm a high performer, and I was an athlete, and I have an athlete's mentality. It didn't go away. Overnight, just didn't go away. So it wasn't like, okay, man, how am I going to do this? It was like, okay, I can't have stress. Well, my life is stressful. So that's not always an option to me. So I have to manage my stress as much as I possibly can. We'll get into that, but I knew there had to be more ways to support my body, more ways to thrive instead of just survive. Okay, if that makes sense. That's what led me into this deep researching everything from metabolic health to toner, muscular recovery, to the smallest details of nutrition and mindset. Every step of the way, I learned that managing Addison's disease wasn't just about taking a pill or shots or things like that. It was about creating a whole life system to keep my mind, body, and spirit aligned. So let me explain what that is real quick. My mind, body, and spirit. EDS means live the healthiest life you possibly can, mentally, physically. It means that got to sleep better. Okay. Got to be less stressed. So I got to be more patient. Got to be more forgiving. Have to exercise every day. Okay. But not exercise so much and so intense that I throw myself into this cortisol fit. That was new for me too. So all these things that affect homeostasis, and every way that homeostasis is affected with the typical person that's trying to lose weight, was times 10 for me. So everything had to be times 10. Had to get the proper sleep. If I didn't get the proper sleep, I would get sick. Okay? Didn't eat the proper food, I was going to get sick. Inflammation was going to build up in my body naturally, so I had to fight the inflammation in my body. So it was about changing everything, changing drinking, eliminating how much I was doing that and so on, and taking over my life and getting healthy. So it was a complete change. So now I want to talk about the burnout, okay? That we don't talk about sometimes. Then there's Sarah's journey. While Addison's is rare, adrenal fatigue, as we might often call adrenal dysregulation, is everywhere. And it's more prevalent than it's ever been, because here's the thing is, what we're finding is women in pre-menopause, menopause, and post all of a sudden adrenal fatigue it's prevalent. Autoimmune stuff prevalent, actually inflammation. So Hashimoto's is something that no one talks about, that all of a sudden the statistics are that people in pre-menopause or post-menopause, it's about at 42% for females actually having Hashimoto's. So engineering your approach to this stuff has everything to do with how we're going to approach health and fitness. And every way that people are doing health and fitness, it's wrong. It's going to play into that the opposite way. It's going to be negative for you. You're not going to get the results that you want. You're going to deteriorate yourself. Because remember, adrenal fatigue and Addison's can deteriorate you, can dump cortisol in your body. So we don't want to do anything that's going to dump more cortisol in our body. So everywhere, it's something that gives high achievers, caregivers, and busy parents especially hard, because these are the hard workers. Sarah has also been a force of nature, raising kids, running businesses, coaching others. But all that intensity without true recovery caught up to her. I watched it caught up to her, and I watched her not be able to process stress. I watched her as she went from vibrant, to and driven to completely depleted. And the classic signs were all there: chronic exhaustion, brain fog, mood swings, sleep disturbances, Okay. And that's just a sense of just pushing through until pushing wasn't enough. What's tricky is that adrenal fatigue isn't formally recognized in conventional medicine. Many doctors told her she was fine. Some of her labs were right in the perfect zones, but she knew her body wasn't fine. She knew that something was wrong. So she took matters into her own hands, digging into functional testing, tracking, and her stress response, and overhauling lifestyle to focus on recovery as a priority. Remember that recovery as a priority, because we're going to get into that. And I want you to understand from this today how we're going to take recovery as a priority. So it's not a quick fix. But over time with, you know, intentional focus, she has rebuilt her health. And through her journey, we learned so much about stress, lifestyle, and mindset, all weave together. And we had to also, here's something that's interesting. Disclaimer for all you couples out there. We had to understand how to handle each other differently, not to cause more stress. And that's tough because think about it. COVID, our business, we have been through COVID, a hurricane, okay, a fire that burnt down the whole place, kids growing up, playing sports, making sure they get good grades, raising them the right way. I mean, that's enough to drive anyone to drink. Now you add all this other stuff, you know, there's some serious things in there. So we had to learn how to restructure our relationship, not to cause stress in that relationship. And this is very important to you. So I want you to really take this in and maybe have a conversation with your significant other about it. How how can I support instead of stress? That is the biggest thing. How can I support instead of stress? And I'm kind of a stressor and I'm an intense guy. So I want to go to the intensity. I got to get things done. We got to be great. We got to move things on. That is kind of my mentality. So I had to pull that back a bit and say, hey, let's figure this out. What do you think's best? How can we do this? And I had to start deep into myself, going, I can't have the stress that I have and I can't give her the stress because both of us can't process it. We can't process the cortisol and we're going to end up killing each other, literally from the inside out. So we had to deal with each other, more feelings, more talking about what's going on in our lives, more understanding, oh, you're in a bad mood. I need to back off. um, More of a growth environment. And we talk a lot about growth environment versus the fixed environment. You got to be in a state of perpetual growth, okay? Especially to combat some of this stuff. So now I want to talk about what's really happening when our system gets overwhelmed, right? So we just kind of talked about that. All right. So let's dig deeper into what's really happening inside your body when your adrenal system is out of balance, whether it's Addison disease, adrenal dysregulation, you know, adrenal fatigue, or that's just creeping, you know, sense of a total, or is a sense of a total burnout. As I said earlier, your adrenal glands are small, but they're mighty. Okay. They sit right on top of your kidneys and they work as part of your hypothalamic pituitary adrenal HPA axis. Basically, your body's master control system. So basically, your body's master control system for stress. Um, so when that system is working well, it helps you to respond to challenges, bounce back, keep your energy, mood, and metabolism. It keeps you wanting to work out, keeps your growth hormone and your testosterone high. Okay. So let me stop right there and just tell you something important. Okay. So anyone who's doing a lot of cardio and limiting what they're eating, okay, on adrenal fatigue, has adrenal fatigue, adrenal insufficiency, Addison's disease, whatever you have, Hashimoto's, any autoimmune disease, Graves, um, anything that's pulling from the body. If you are training the wrong way, you're going to be aging yourself times 4. So hear that. You're going to be aging yourself times 4. And I know you don't want to age yourselves times 4. Nobody does. But we got to do this the right way. We got to do this the right way. And today, this is the secret. I'm going to tell you the secret. We have to train with weights in such a way that we are getting anabolic with our system. Okay. And that is fixing, increasing lean mass and fixing in in the hormones in in our bodies. Okay. Are, we're suppressing the cortisol, suppressing the cortisol. Okay, the endorphins in our body kick when we hit that hard weight training. Okay, it doesn't have to be heavy. It has to be focused. It has to be riding the neural pathways to the brain during that session. I know we'll talk more about other things and we'll keep talking more about it, but that's what we deal with at Fit Culture. We deal with riding the neural pathways to the brain so that we don't deteriorate. Okay? So I wanted you just to understand that's so important. And most of you are doing cardio, and it will tear you apart. Okay? So I definitely don't want that to be the case. Also, I want you to train the right way with the right frequency. Okay? And that's what we're going to teach. So in today's world, chronic stress is relentless, right? We've got financial pressures, emotional loads, work demands, physical stress from overtraining, okay, or even silent stressors like infections or inflammation, and all this inflammation in our body. So your body keeps score. And if the stress never lets up, your adrenals pay the price. Adrenal fatigue. It will shut down and it will not come back unless we do everything the right way, and it will only come back that much. So let's revisit that typical pattern, okay? First, your adrenals are in overdrive. You feel wired, anxious, jumpy, like you're on caffeine, and you can't sleep. Bigger problem. If you can't sleep, you're not in homeostasis. If you're not in homeostasis, you can't lose weight. You can't regulate your weight. Okay. You're craving salty snacks or sugar for quick hits of energy or caffeine. Sound familiar? Okay. Overtime, your body can't keep up with that high alert state, fight or flight, and you swing into burnout. Okay. Burnout mode, crashing, fatigue, brain fog, low blood pressure, and a lack of motivation. Okay. So Sarah's journey hit both phases. She went from wired but tired to complete exhaustion over a few years of nonstop pushing. And I watched her not be able to deal with her stress. All of a sudden, she was like, she was struggling on the normal things because, I mean, she is an absolute rock star. She's so amazing. I'm so blessed. And she's such a great mom. And she is such a great worker. It's incredible. And then I just watched all the stress start to, it felt like it was eating at her. Literally felt like it was eating at her. And then we found out she had adrenal fatigue. And of course it was. So another situation, Jess, my client, that was a classic high achiever, type A high achiever who couldn't figure out why her body was short circuiting, even though she was doing everything right. Here's the interesting part. So let me go through her labs real quick. So we took her labs, okay, and her potential, okay, her RMR, which is her resting metabolic rate. You breathe into a tube, it gives you your resting metabolic rate, which tells you a lot of things. Okay, it tells us a lot of things. We also do a VO2 max that tells us a lot of things too. Her VO2 max was low, her RMR was low. Okay, so her baseline RMR. So here's what we figured out. The baseline RMR, we want everyone to be 30% higher than your baseline RMR. That means that you're not in a metabolic crisis. Okay. She was 200 points below that. So she was 20% to 30% lower, and we want her 30% higher. So she was at a deficit really of about 60%. Now, here's the interesting part. When we didn't know this, but we tested her, and then we asked her, hey, is there something going on that we should know? She said, I have Hashimoto's. We said, you have Hashimoto's. That makes sense. And here's the interesting part. When we test people in their RMR and they have Hashimoto's, we're starting to see something. We're starting to see a correlation. everybody with these autoimmune problems, okay, or slow metabolism, it's showing up in their RMR, and their baseline, it's lower or even to that, not 30% higher. So everything they do is depletion, deterioration of the body. Okay. So, and really, it's not just fatigue you might see. There's gut issues like bloating or irregularity there all the time. It's there all the time, and we see it, and we've been dealing with it with supplements and things like that that we've been giving them to have. Our supplements have been amazing for that. Okay, I take them for that, and since I've been taking them, it's changed everything because I have that belly fat. No matter how lean I am, I have a little bit of belly fat. I can be like 10% body fat and have a six pack that protrudes out. It's kind of weird. So it's because my system has too much inflammation in it from the Addisons. So that's what she was having. And she couldn't eat certain things. She couldn't drink. She said she loved to drink. She just couldn't do it because every time she drank, her stomach felt, it's tight. So if you're having this as you're getting older and you start to drink and your stomach feels extreme bloat, this is a sign. So she also felt like she was in hormonal chaos is what she kind of said. And I feel like I'm in chaos. And I call it hormonal chaos. Irregular cycles, worsened PMS, low libido, didn't want to have sex at all. And said she used to love to have sex. It was like her favorite thing. She said she was a sexual being and then all of a sudden, nothing. So if you're experiencing these things, they might start to register to you and go, wow, okay, I'm experiencing these things. Weakened immunity, catching colds all the time. This is such a huge thing. This happened to me. As like a 30-year-old man, I must have had pneumonia by that point in time, like 3 or 4 times. Weird. I just would get pneumonia. Just all the time we'd get pneumonia and my system would wear down because I did run it hard and I did work 80-hour weeks because I had my own business. Trying to get ahead. So I just felt zapped and drained and sucked all the time. And it was tough. And so I understood she felt the same way. So she went from a sexual being to not. So even her skin and hair changes because your body is deprioritizing non-essential functions just to survive. So here's the $1 million question. Okay. Get ready for this. Why is it so hard to get diagnosed? I know I struggle with it. No one would diagnose me until I found a great hormone specialist, Dr. Berger in Beverly Hills, who diagnosed me, said, yeah, you have Addison's disease. This makes sense. And your hormones are low and they're not low. And I had the hormones at 32 when I was diagnosed, I had the hormones of a 62-year-old. There you go. Or worse. So he went, okay, this is the problem. We're going to put you on this regimen and stuff like that. So I was just like, gosh. So for her, she was like, this is where it gets frustrating, where so many people they're invalidated because they can't get diagnosed. I was lucky to get diagnosed at 32, but Addison's disease is rare. It's rare, man. It's so rare. Because it can't be definitely diagnosed unless through blood tests measuring cortisol and all these things. And you got to have someone that reads the test the right way. ACTH, and often even with the ACTH, a stimulation test, there are catches. There's things. Early stage Addison's can show normal results, especially if the condition is slowly progressing. Symptoms can be vague: fatigue, dizziness, salt cravings, weight loss, or weight gain. They mimic lots of other issues. For me, they were like, well, you have a tough time losing weight, so you should be losing weight. So it was like, okay, all right, sorry, I don't fall into that thing. So they didn't want to give me necessarily hormones, and people just don't want to give people hormones because they think that's what they're fishing for instead of kind of looking after them. So in reality, she was struggling with all these things and no one was there to help her. Until she got the right help, we tested things here and we put her on this extreme A lot of calories, the right amount of calories. When I mean calories, I mean the right amount of food. Feeding her the right fuels and the right foods every 3 to 4 hours, and changing everything homeostasis, getting her in homeostasis, building lean mass, and doing all these things. So that's how we got her to change. We dumped growth hormone and testosterone into her body through weight training and things like that. And she said she started to feel started to feel better. Got some peptides to help that and to help with her pituitary. So it wasn't thyroid or the stuff. It was a bunch of different things of how to help the body. So it's often mistaken for depression, by the way. Okay, chronic fatigue syndromes, thyroid issues. Oh, it's a thyroid issue. A lot of times it's not. It's an adrenal or a pituitary issue that's causing a thyroid problem. But a lot of people want to throw the medication at the thyroid. Life stress. It's going to cause a lot of life stress. Okay. I can't tell you how many clients I've spoken to who were just brushed off multiple times before getting diagnosed. Can't tell you how many. It's ridiculous. I was lucky to get answers relatively quickly, but many people suffer for this for years without clarity. So adrenal fatigue, or more accurately, adrenal dysregulation, is even trickier because it could be that you're in the right level. So if there's a level of your testosterone and it goes from 200 to 600, okay, and you're at 202, you're technically in the right range, even though someone else could be at 598. Does they have 300 points higher? Why do they have 300 points higher? No one's talking about it. Now, can you handle these things holistically before you handle them prescription wise? Of course. And that's exactly what we're talking about. Exactly what we're talking about, getting on our hormonal system. Our hormone system actually helps with that. And that's what we've been helping people for years and years and years. And most of our clients, that's what we're dealing with, is these people that are the deteriorating people, tried a lot of different things, struggling at home. So we get the hardest cases of people that can't lose weight. We get them to lose weight by building up their adrenal system, their endocrine system, pituitary, adrenal, and thyroids, through training and everything the right way. Sleep, training. So the term adrenal fatigue isn't recognized by many conventional and medical institutions. That doesn't mean your symptoms aren't real. It just doesn't mean that the means that the medical model focuses more on a clear-cut diseases other than functional imbalances. So doctors may say your cortisol levels are within the normal range. Your blood work looks fine. You're just stressed or overworked. Get more rest. I've had countless clients coming and saying, my labs are normal, but I knew something was wrong. And they're right. The problem is often in the pattern of cortisol over the day. You're not just a single number. That's why, that salivary cortisol test, which tracks cortisol at multiple times a day, can show what standard blood tests miss. Okay, because when are you stressed? When is the cortisol high? Is it high when you wake up? Is it high when you're sleeping? Is it high after you eat? Is it high because you're not training? Oh, is it better because you trained? It can show these things. So they're powerful, great tests. So show what standard blood tests sometimes miss, like we said. So what's going on behind the scenes? There's a lot of debate in the medical world. Some doctors believe that adrenal dysregulation is more of a brain issue that is in your hypothalamus and pituitary that are misfirings. Okay, and there can be fixed with all kind of hormones and things. Again, like it says, I don't prescribe things. I'm not a doctor, but I have been prescribed many things, and my clients have been prescribed many things, and I've seen many labs over the years, and I can see sometimes that a peptide used the right way can help hugely, amazingly get that for the right people. Now, problem is peptides are abused, right? So we can kind of trigger that misfiring. So not not the adrenal glands themselves, but sometimes the pituitary. Others are skeptical because there's no universal agreed upon test or diagnostic criteria for adrenal fatigue. And HRT is definitely a debated thing, certainly a debated thing. So I even debated on some level because I think we should start holistically before we go into HRT. Others think that's you should go into HRT, do the holistic approach, and it'll have 3 times or 4 times the effect. And I certainly have seen that as well. So any way to approach it, we got to look at it. And if things are registering with you and you're thinking that you could have this problem, it's something to talk to your doctor about. So functional and integrative health practitioners, on the other hand, often see this pattern every day, and they build entire treatments, okay, around it. Even in the mainstream medical world, it hasn't really caught up yet. The back and forth leaves patients stuck in the middle, feeling unseen and extremely frustrated. I mean, I'm still the same way. So we dunked him, and he was 9 pounds fatter. Okay, he had 9 pounds of fat because he lost 9 pounds of lean mass. Then I asked him, I said, well, did you do any weight training? He's like, no, I really didn't do very much weight training. And I was like, okay, well, this is why we gained lean mass. I go, how much did you eat? Because I really, really overly watched my calories and probably didn't eat enough. There was the 9 pounds. So he thought he was done amazing and he's proud of himself. The dunk tank told him 9 pounds, and that's a big difference, especially when you think you're doing well. So homeostasis and our approach to how we do things is so very important, especially if there's something autoimmune going on, if there's something adrenal going on, Graves, Hashimoto's, all these things that we talked about before, it's going to intensify. So we're going to have to make sure that we're doing things times 10 the right way because it will want to pull from the body. So the hydrostatic testing is still the most accurate way we have to measure body composition. How much is of your lean mass, which is a muscle, bone, connective tissue, and how much is pure fat. So we, by using the dunk tank, can measure how much pure fat you're losing each week, not all that other stuff, pure fat. Okay. Here's how it works. We will weigh you on land, and then we sit you in a warm water tank, and based upon the Archimedes principle, it displays because fat floats and muscle sinks, so it just displays how much. So how much you weigh in water and how much is lean mass. So by seeing now your body behaves in water, we can calculate your body fat percentage to the ounce. Pretty cool, right? And this reason that matters, it makes your scale is a liar. And if you've seen some of my stuff, the scale is a liar. That's the proof. Okay. Maybe that number on your scale isn't going down, but maybe maybe what you're actually doing is losing muscle, which you're deteriorating, means you're aging yourself. And that can slow your metabolism down. So no one calls up and say, hey, Eric, I want to come to your program. And I said, fantastic. I'm going to slow down your metabolism. How does that sound? You'd be like, no way, my metabolism already sucks. I get it. That's not the way we go. We want to build that metabolism up. So we want to do everything the right way. And the hydrostatic body fat testing unit, as we call it, the dunk tank, tells us exactly that. So maybe the scale hasn't budged at all, but the hydrostatic body fat test tells you exactly how your body is changing. Okay. So in ways you just can't see. Either way, it gives you the truth. No more guesswork. You're going to know exactly what you're losing. So the 360 body scans are pretty cool. I love them because it shows you what your body really looks like in claymation form. Will Tennyson, he's an amazing guy. He came onto our program and did a little thing on our program. He has an amazing stuff. If you ever want to watch Will Tennyson stuff, it's amazing. It's so entertaining, and he's an awesome person. He was 10% body fat when he came in, and he was completely unhappy with how his body looks because the scan just shows you the little imperfections that we all want to work on and things like that. So the scan gives a full snapshot of your body's measurements, your posture, your muscle distribution and shape. It takes just a few minutes and helps you track changes that a scale would completely miss. So you might think your weight hasn't changed, but this shows me if you've lost inches, gained muscle, or improved your alignment. So all these things are obviously, and it gives me a clearer picture, a much better picture of your progress. So story, um, so a story that I know, I never forget the first time I tested my own RMR after my Addison's diagnosis. I just assumed, okay, I've done everything right. I eat clean. I'm constantly exercising, working out, and I eat a ton of meals, fuel myself the right way. But I ran the test, okay? My actual metabolic rate came in almost 400 calories lower. And I was like, gosh, God, that sucks, that I can't eat as many calories. I was hoping it was going to be 400 calories higher. So I thought in my mind, I was deficient 800 calories. So I remember just sitting there kind of going, gosh, you know, no wonder I feel like I'm dragging every day or I'm struggling to lose so much weight. And I think that changed me. That changed me forever. I realized that even though I looked fit, okay, my body was in a conservation mode. It was in a holding back because it just didn't feel safe. Didn't feel like, okay, release the fat. Or I wasn't doing enough things that I had to do more than the average person to be in homeostasis. So that data gave me permission to slow down, to nourish more, to recover better. And Sarah had a similar moment when she tested her VO2 max and her anaerobic threshold. We saw that she was hitting the sugar burning mode way too early in her workouts. So she thought pushing harder was the answer. Push harder, do more. But the body was stuck in a stress mode. That was what's happened to me too. I was going, okay, I'm playing hockey all the time, playing hockey all the time. Well, why when I just do a teeny bit of a workout, sometimes I lose more weight because my body is not in that fight or flight cortisol firing mode. Some of us are like that. Some of us aren't. Some of us can push high and cortisol doesn't come in and we lose a ton of calories because we're all so different. You've got to understand that we're all so different. And that's why we test. That's why we test. So we scaled back and focused on zone 2 training and restorative work with Sarah, and her energy finally started to come back. So that's why I test. Okay. Test because you can't see those things in the mirror, but they matter. They matter. They're the difference between spinning your wheels and actually healing. So my final word, okay, I know I said a lot of words, is whether you're navigating Addison's disease, adrenal fatigue, or just trying to make sense of the exhaustion you feel or the stress that you feel or having too much cortisol in your body, remember this. You don't have to do it perfectly. That's the biggest problem that I think people do. They want to do everything perfect. Right now, if I tell you, whatever you do, you can't, you may not, don't you ever think of blue. What do you think of? Blue, right? We've done this in the adrenal fatigue and in our life coaching series and things like that. You think of blue, right? So trying to do everything, perfectly just will give you burnout. And you're already a high performer who's struggling with too much stuff and feel like your system's off and whether or not you've got cravings or, you can't lose weight or a lack of sex drive, your gut has issues, whatever the case may be. We don't have to do it perfectly. We just got to figure out how your system works and work around it. Okay. So you just have to do it, on purpose. You just have to do it on purpose. The healing journey, it's linear. Okay. It's linear. Okay. But it is powerful. It is yours. I promise you. Okay. You're not alone in this. Sarah and I, we've lived it. And we are here to walk beside you every step of the way because your story isn't over. You are important and there's nothing stopping you. You are the unstoppable version of yourself and you can do this. In fact, it might just be starting right now. As we're getting this, you're learning something, you're going, no, I'm not going to be a victim to my body. I'm going to work on this stress. I'm going to get more sleep. I'm going to be in homeostasis. I can do this. You're the unstoppable version of yourself, and there's nothing you can't do. I know it, and you know it. So here's your invitation, okay? live like a work in progress, not because you're not enough, just because you're evolving into something even better. Okay. Thank you for being here. I appreciate you more than you could ever possibly know. Um, Thank you for doing the work. Thank you for struggling, fixing it, pushing forward. I appreciate you. Um, Hopefully we see you again. Fitculture.com. We've got a bunch of different things that will help with some of the things we talked about. So, um, fitculture.com has the supplements, amazing with inflammation, especially with the gut stuff. Okay, I take it myself. Most amazing stuff. I took 20 products, put them in 4. So most amazing there. Of course, we have the camp, the retreat. You can come out and do that and figure out how your body works. Of course, we've got the app. The app's amazing. It's very affordable. So if you're on a budget that's affordable, there's just some things that can help you. Fitculture.com. I appreciate you so much, and I cannot wait to be along with this journey, and hopefully you'll check it back with us again and listen to some other stuff, and I can't wait. Take care.